The message came on a Tuesday. After decades of searching the stars, humanity finally received proof they were not alone. The radio telescopes at the Global Space Initiative picked up the signal originating from somewhere near Alpha Centauri. Unlike the random noise of cosmic background radiation, this signal had clear patterns, mathematical sequences that could only be created by intelligent life. Lisa Bell leaned close to her computer screen, her eyes wide as the translation software processed the alien language. 3 days without sleep, and now they were close to understanding. "I think I've got it," she said, brushing a strand of brown hair from her face. "They call themselves the Zarkol Imperium." Major Jack Daniels stood behind her, arms crossed over his chest. The veteran soldier had been chosen to lead Earth's first contact team because of his calm demeanor and diplomatic experience. "What else are they saying?" "They want to meet us. They're sending a delegation to Earth in 2 months." News of the alien contact spread across the planet. Some people celebrated in the streets. Others stocked supplies in bunkers. Most just watched the skies with a mixture of hope and fear. The world governments formed a united response team. Major Daniels would serve as humanity's primary representative, with Lisa Bell as the communication specialist. Admiral Henry Wood would oversee security with a small fleet of Earth's best ships positioned as a ceremonial guard, and as a last line of defense if things went wrong. The Zarkol ships arrived exactly when they said they would. 7 sleek vessels appeared in orbit, their hulls shimmering with a metallic blue light that no human engineer had ever seen before. The largest ship was 5 times the size of Earth's biggest space carrier. "They're making a show of power," Admiral Wood said quietly as he and Daniels watched from the observation deck of the International Space Station. "Bringing more ships than necessary." Daniels nodded. "Let them show off. We're here to make friends, not measure the size of our guns." High Commander Vrex of the Zarkol led the alien delegation. He stood nearly 7 feet tall with gray-purple skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large black orbs that seemed to take in everything at once. When he spoke, his translator device converted his clicking language into a deep, rumbling English. "We bring greetings from the Imperium," Vrex said during the formal meeting at the United Nations. "We have watched your world for some time and believe you are ready to join the galactic community." The human delegates smiled and nodded. They offered gifts and speeches about friendship and cooperation. The Zarkol accepted with what looked like polite interest. Over the next few days, small things began to trouble Daniels. The Zarkol would make unexpected demands during meetings. Once they insisted on changing the meeting location at the last minute. Another time they arrived 3 hours late without apology. Each time, the human team adjusted and accommodated them. "They're testing us," Daniels told Admiral Wood during a private conversation in a secure room. "Seeing how we react to pressure." Wood nodded. "I've noticed their security officers studying our weapons a little too closely. They're sizing us up." "What do you think they see?" "A species that backs down easily, that values being nice over standing firm." Wood's face hardened. "They see us as prey." Daniels looked out the window at the Zarkol ships hovering in the night sky. "Then let them think that for now, we've survived on this planet by knowing when to fight and when to wait." The next day, Vrex requested mining rights on Mars as a gesture of friendship. The human delegation appeared hesitant but ultimately agreed. Later, as the aliens returned to their ships, Vrex spoke to his second-in-command. "These humans are soft. They fear conflict more than anything. The Imperium will find Earth an easy addition to our territories." Behind them, Lisa Bell pretended not to understand their language as she recorded every word in her hidden device. 6 months passed since the Zarkol arrived on Earth. Their ships became a common sight in the sky. Small groups of aliens now walked the streets of major cities, always surrounded by their guards. Humans watched them with a mix of wonder and worry. In a meeting room deep within the United Nations building in New York, High Commander Vrex placed his 4 hands on the table. His black eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. The Imperium requires a military base on your moon, he said. This is necessary for your protection. Major Jack Daniels kept his face calm, though his stomach tightened. This was the 5th new demand this month. First came mining rights on Mars, then control of key shipping lanes. Now they wanted a military presence right above Earth. That's a significant request, Commander, Daniels said carefully. We would need time to discuss this with all nations. Vrex made a sound like stones grinding together, the Zarkol version of a laugh. Time. You have until tomorrow. The Imperium's patience grows thin. After the aliens left, Admiral Henry Wood slammed his fist on the table. They're not even pretending anymore. This isn't diplomacy. It's the beginning of invasion. Lisa Bell nodded. I've decoded more of their communications. They've already told their homeworld that Earth will be fully under their control within a year. Daniels looked at the small group of Earth's leaders gathered in the room. Then it's time for Phase 2. Admiral, what's the status of Operation Silent Thunder? Wood straightened up. Ready when you give the word. Our public fleet remains small and outdated, just as they expect. But the special projects are ahead of schedule. In a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Susan Miller walked through rows of new spacecraft. Unlike the conventional ships in Earth's official fleet, these vessels incorporated technology that had been kept secret for decades. Some of it was purely human innovation. Other elements came from studying the Zarkol ships from afar. How soon can they be ready? She asked the lead engineer. Kate Frost wiped grease from her hands. 2 more months for full combat readiness. We've cracked their shield frequency patterns. Alan's team is finalizing the weapons systems now. Across the room, Alan Rodriguez was running simulations on a massive computer. Their technology is advanced, but not as advanced as they want us to believe. They rely on intimidation as much as actual power. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Vrex met with his officers in their temporary embassy. The room had been swept for bugs, but they didn't know about the new listening devices Lisa had developed, devices based on the Zarkol's own technology. The humans continue to yield to every demand, Vrex said. They value their comfort and peace too highly. They will give up anything to avoid conflict. His second-in-command nodded. The reports from our observers confirm this. They have no warrior spirit. Their soldiers are ceremonial. Their weapons primitive. The Imperium will be pleased. We expected to need a full invasion force, but these humans will surrender their world without a fight. What the Zarkol didn't see were the small changes happening around the globe. Military personnel quietly disappearing from their regular posts, resources being redirected to hidden locations, satellites being repositioned under the guise of routine maintenance. In orbit, Captain Olivia Martinez guided her small maintenance ship around one of the Zarkol vessels. Her crew was supposedly checking space debris, but their real mission was to scan the alien ship's hull for weaknesses. Keep it casual, she told her pilot. Just another boring day at work. The Zarkol ship paid them no attention. Why would they? Humans were no threat. Back on Earth, Major Daniels signed another agreement, giving the aliens rights to Antarctic resources. His hand was steady, his smile apologetic. That night, he met with Admiral Wood in a secure bunker. How much longer do we have to keep this act up? Wood showed him the latest reports. Just a little longer. Let them think they've won until we're ready. They believe we're afraid of war. Daniels nodded. And that will be their biggest mistake. 2 years had passed since the first Zarkol ships appeared in Earth's sky. Now their vessels were everywhere. Small settlements of aliens had been established in key locations around the planet. What started as cultural exchange centers had grown into fortified compounds where the aliens lived according to their own rules. High Commander Vrex stood at the window of his office in the main Zarkol base, near what was once New York City. Below him, humans moved about their daily business. Some worked directly for the aliens now, serving as laborers and assistants. The water demand has been delivered to their leaders, his aide reported. We have given them 3 days to respond. Vrex nodded. They will agree, as always. The Imperium's need for Earth's water resources is non-negotiable. The demand was their most extreme yet: exclusive rights to control 70% of Earth's fresh water. Humans would need permits to access their own lakes and rivers. In the underground command center beneath Denver, now known only as the Nest, Earth's true leadership gathered around a holographic display. The room buzzed with activity as officers and scientists monitored. The small town of Pine Creek, Oregon woke to the sound of alien ships. 5 Tsar coal vessels hovered over the main street, their engines humming with an eerie vibration that made windows shake. Soldiers poured out, moving from house to house. "You have 2 hours to evacuate," the alien commander announced through speakers. "This land has been designated for mineral extraction. Resistance will not be tolerated." The townspeople gathered in the center of town. Some argued, pointing at maps showing this land had not been part of any agreement. The Zarkol commander raised his weapon. "The agreements have changed," he said simply. Mayor Pete Simmons stepped forward. "We need more time. There are elderly people here, children." The commander fired. Mayor Simmons fell to the ground. Then the soldiers opened fire on the crowd. By nightfall, Pine Creek was empty. 342 humans dead. The rest fled with only what they could carry. News of the massacre spread quickly despite the Zarkol's efforts to control information. Across the planet, humans watched the footage smuggled out by survivors. Anger replaced fear. In Washington, D.C., Major Daniels stood before the Zarkol leadership in an emergency meeting. His voice shook with what the aliens believed was fear. "This incident was unfortunate," he said carefully. "We request more time for peaceful relocations in the future." High Commander Vrex waved 2 of his 4 arms dismissively. "Your request is noted. Prepare for the Supreme Commander's arrival next week. He comes to formalize Earth's full integration into the Imperium." Daniels bowed his head. "We will prepare a suitable welcome." As soon as he left the building, Daniels entered a secure vehicle. The driver took an irregular route to throw off any followers before descending into an underground garage. Deep below the city, the Nest was in full operation mode. "They've accelerated their timeline," Daniels reported to the War Council. "The massacre wasn't a mistake. It was a test to see how we would respond." Admiral Wood nodded grimly. "And our official protest was exactly what they expected: weak and ineffective." General Miller stood at the main tactical display. "Then we move now. The Supreme Commander's arrival gives us the perfect opportunity. All their leadership will be in one place." Dr. Nancy White approached with a tablet showing a satellite view of Earth. "The defense grid is fully operational. Disguised as weather satellites, they've never given them a second look." On the screen, a network of small dots circled the planet. Each represented a weapons platform capable of disabling alien electronics without harming human systems. "Send the activation code," General Miller ordered. "All assets, full alert. Commander Taylor's fleet should move into position." Deep in the asteroid belt, Commander Eric Taylor received the encrypted message on his command ship. "Remember Thermopylae." The code phrase meant their waiting was over. "Battle stations," Taylor ordered. His fleet of 50 ships, built in secret, hidden in the shadow of asteroids, powered up their engines. "Commence Operation Silent Thunder." In orbit around Saturn, Captain Martinez received the same message. "Prepare jump coordinates," she told her crew. "We'll hit their flank exactly as planned." Around the world, hidden resistance fighters prepared for coordinated strikes. Lieutenant Johnson entered the final security codes into his datapad, ready to disable the Chicago compound's defenses. In his lab, Dr. Green activated the shield generators that would protect major human population centers. Unaware of what was coming, Vrex supervised preparations for the Supreme Commander's arrival. Additional ships joined the fleet above Earth, bringing the total to over 100 vessels, a display of power meant to finalize Earth's submission. The humans have prepared quite a welcoming ceremony. his aide reported. "They seem eager to please the Supreme Commander." Vrex nodded. "As they should be. After the ceremony, we begin full resource extraction. The Supreme Commander has authorized us to use whatever means necessary to process this planet efficiently." In the nest, Major Daniels watched the final countdown on the main screen. Years of planning, of pretending to be weak, of studying the enemy. It all came down to the next few hours. "Send the final authorization," he told Lisa Bell. "The surrender ceremony begins at noon tomorrow." Bell nodded, understanding the double meaning. The surrender ceremony would indeed begin then, but not in the way the Zarkul expected. The day of the surrender ceremony arrived with clear blue skies. Zarkul ships formed a ring above the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight, weapons visible for all to see, a message of power impossible to miss. The Supreme Commander of the Zarkul Imperium stood 9 feet tall, his gray-purple skin decorated with metallic implants that signified his high rank. 6 elite guards flanked him as he walked toward the stage where Earth's leaders waited. Major Jack Daniels stood at the center of the human delegation. He wore a simple black suit with no medals or decorations, nothing that would suggest he was anything more than a diplomat chosen to hand over his planet's freedom. High Commander Vrex followed behind his leader, all 4 arms clasped behind his back in a posture of victory. He had personally overseen Earth's submission over the past 2 years. This ceremony would be the crowning achievement of his career. Thousands of cameras broadcast the event worldwide. The Zarkul wanted every human to witness their species' formal acceptance of alien rule. "We gather today to formalize the relationship between Earth and the glorious Zarkul Imperium." The Supreme Commander's voice boomed through the translation device. "Your planet will now receive the honor of full integration into our domains." Daniel stepped forward to the microphone. His face showed appropriate humility as cameras zoomed in. "On behalf of humanity," he began, his voice steady, "I must say that we have learned much since your arrival." He paused, then added the phrase that would trigger everything. "Humanity accepts your terms." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Supreme Commander began to reach for the treaty document. Then every Zarkul communication device went silent at once. In orbit, Dr. Nancy White's defense grid activated. Invisible energy pulses swept across the planet, targeting specific frequencies used only by alien technology. The Zarkul guards reached for their weapons, but nothing happened when they pressed the triggers. Confusion crossed the Supreme Commander's face. Before he could speak, the sky changed. Where there had been only Zarkul ships moments before, new vessels appeared, human ships dropping their stealth fields. "What is the meaning of this?" the Supreme Commander demanded, his translator barely working. Daniel smiled for the first time in 2 years, a real smile, not the submissive expression the aliens had grown used to seeing. "It means your intelligence about humans was flawed," he said simply. "We were never afraid of war. We were preparing for it." Above them, Captain Martinez's tenacity led the first strike. Her ship had been designed specifically to counter Zarkul shields. Energy beams lanced from her weapons, disabling the alien flagship's engines. "Multiple targets acquired," Martinez said calmly to her crew. "Execute primary attack pattern." Throughout the solar system, hidden human fleets emerged from their concealment. Commander Taylor's ships streaked in from the asteroid belt, hitting the rear of the alien formation. Vessels that had been disguised as space debris near Mars revealed themselves as armed cruisers. On the ground, Lieutenant Johnson activated the codes that shut down security systems in every Zarkul compound worldwide. Doors sealed shut, trapping the aliens inside their own bases as Special Forces teams moved in. The Supreme Commander reached for a hidden weapon, but found his arm caught in Major Daniel's grip. The human strength surprised him. "Your forces vastly outnumber ours," the Supreme Commander hissed. "This resistance is futile." "Is it?" Daniels replied. "Look again." The main Tsar Kol battle cruiser exploded silently in orbit, debris scattering across the sky. 2 more followed, and 3. High Commander Vrex stared in disbelief. Impossible. Your technology is inferior. No, General Miller said as she walked onto the stage with armed soldiers. Your information was inferior. You saw what we wanted you to see. Across the planet, humans watched their screens as the sky filled with battle. 2 years of suppressed anger found its voice as people cheered the sight of alien ships falling. In space, Captain Martinez gave new orders to her fleet. Phase 2 begins now. Don't let any of them escape to warn the Imperium. The Tsar Kol had thought humans afraid of war. Now they were learning, much too late, just how wrong they had been. The Tsar Kol were not used to losing. In the 300 years of their expansion across the stars, no species had ever successfully resisted them. Their strategy had always worked. Observe, intimidate, and conquer without firing a shot when possible. Now they were facing something new. Across Earth, their forces found themselves cut off from each other. Their weapons functioned at half power. Their communications were jammed. And the humans, the weak, fearful humans, were fighting back with unexpected ferocity. High Commander Vrex was taken to a secure facility beneath the Pentagon. Through a viewing window, he watched screens showing battles unfolding across the solar system. How? He demanded when Major Daniels entered the room. How did you hide this level of military preparation? Daniels studied the alien's face. We didn't hide our military. We hid our intentions. Everything you saw was real. Our ships, our weapons, our bases. But you never saw them used the way they were designed to be used. On the largest screen, Captain Martinez's tenacity executed a complex maneuver that split an alien formation apart. Her ship turned faster than the Tsar Kol vessels could follow, striking with precise hits to engines and weapon systems rather than trying to destroy them completely. Your species fights to destroy, Admiral Wood said as he joined them. Humans fight to win. There's a difference. Vrex watched with growing horror as more Tsar Kol ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. The reinforcements he had secretly called for weeks ago had finally arrived. It doesn't matter, he said. Our main battle fleet has arrived. You've revealed your deception too soon. Daniels and Wood exchanged a look. Then Wood smiled. We were counting on them, he said. In space, Commander Eric Taylor watched the Tsar Kol reinforcements arrive. Exactly where they had predicted, exactly when they had expected. His fleet of 50 ships waited in formation, hidden behind Earth's moon. All ships, prepare for Hornet's Nest maneuver, he ordered. Remember your training. Speed and precision win this battle, not raw power. His ships burst from behind the moon in a scattered pattern that looked chaotic, but was precisely planned. They didn't attack the front of the alien formation as expected. Instead, they slipped between the larger ships, targeting communication arrays and engines. The massive alien vessels tried to turn to face the threat, but human ships were already past them, hitting them from behind, then disappearing again. In his command ship, the Tsar Kol Fleet Admiral raged at his crew. Find them. How can their technology match ours? What he didn't know was that much of the technology his ships faced was their own. 2 years of studying Tsar Kol systems had allowed humans to adapt and improve upon alien designs. Dr. Kate Frost and Alan Rodriguez watched from their laboratory as weapons they had developed were used in battle. Shield frequencies shifted exactly as their models had predicted. Energy weapons hit with surgical precision. They never understood what they were facing. Frost said quietly, Humans have been fighting wars against other humans for thousands of years. We've had more practice at this than any species they've encountered. Back in the Pentagon, Admiral Wood pointed to a display showing the Tsar Kol fleet's disarray. Your species has conquered many worlds, he told Vrex. But how many of those species had already survived hundreds of their own wars? How many had developed thousands of different battle strategies over millennia? The alien commander had no answer. Major Daniels leaned closer. You mistook our patience for weakness. Our diplomacy for fear. You never realized we were studying you the entire time. On the screen, the tenacity led a formation of ships in a diving attack that disabled 3 alien cruisers in a single pass. Captain Martinez's voice came through the speakers, calm and focused even in the heat of battle. Phase 2 complete. All priority targets neutralized. Proceeding to Phase 3. Wood turned to Vrex. Now comes the part where you learn the most important lesson about humans. Which is? The alien asked. We weren't afraid of war, Daniel said. We were afraid of what losing a war would mean for our people. There's a big difference. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Vrex felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The Zarkul Imperium was not used to failure. News of their fleet's struggles reached the Emperor himself, who watched recordings of the battle with growing rage. His most experienced commanders were being outmaneuvered by a species that had barely reached space. Send the Worldbreaker, he ordered. No one dared argue with him. On Earth, celebrations began as news of victory spread. Alien outposts fell one by one. Captain Martinez's fleet had disabled most of the Zarkul ships without destroying them completely. We want prisoners, not martyrs, she had told her crew. Disable engines and weapons, but avoid killing when possible. In the nest, Admiral Wood received the first warning. A space monitoring station in the outer solar system detected a massive energy signature approaching. It's 3 times larger than anything we faced, the officer reported. And it's moving fast. We'll reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. Wood called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Major Daniels listened as Dr. Green and Dr. Frost presented their analysis. It's the Worldbreaker, Dr. Frost said, pointing to the screen. Their most powerful battleship. We've heard rumors from intercepted communications, but never confirmed its existence until now. Dr. Green shook his head. Our shields won't hold against something that size. The energy readings are off the charts. General Miller studied the tactical display. We need to consolidate our forces. Pull everything back to defend Earth. For the first time in weeks, worry crossed Major Daniels' face. They had planned for many scenarios, but nothing of this magnitude. Then Lisa Bell spoke up from her station. I have an idea, she said, but it's risky. The plan formed quickly. While Earth's forces appeared to fall back in disarray, a small team would attempt what seemed impossible, boarding the Worldbreaker. 6 hours later, Major Daniels led a team of 12 specialists in a stealth shuttle. Their vessel was tiny compared to the massive Worldbreaker that had just arrived in Earth's orbit. The alien battleship was 20 miles long, bristling with weapons that could level continents. Remember, Daniels told his team as they approached a maintenance hatch, we have 70 minutes before they detect the disruption in their security grid. Lieutenant Frank Johnson nodded. His time studying Zarkul security systems would now be put to the ultimate test. I can get us in, he said, but staying hidden once we're inside will be the real challenge. The team slipped into the giant ship through a service entrance designed for repair drones. Inside, they split into 3 groups, each with a specific target. Daniels led the first group toward the main power core. Dr. Kate Frost led the second toward the weapon systems. Johnson took the third toward the bridge. They moved through massive corridors, avoiding patrols of guards. The Worldbreaker's crew was focused on the battle they expected to fight, not on intruders. On Earth, the remaining human forces made a show of preparing final defenses. The Zarkul Emperor himself sent a message that was broadcast worldwide. Your resistance has been noted, his translated voice boomed. It was impressive but futile. The Worldbreaker has never failed to conquer a planet. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate its power on your largest city. General Miller received the message in the nest. Her response was simple. Keep them talking. Give our team more time. Aboard the Worldbreaker, Daniel's team reached the massive power core. They placed small devices called quantum disruptors at key junction points. These weren't bombs. They were something far more sophisticated. Dr. Frost's team finished placing similar devices on the weapon systems. Johnson's team was the last to complete their mission, placing disruptors near the ship's navigation controls. As they worked, Johnson picked up communications from the bridge. The Emperor himself was demanding to speak with Earth's leaders again. "They know," the Emperor said to his commanders. "They know what the World Breaker can do. Why are they not begging for mercy? What do they know that we do not?" Daniels checked his timer. 3 minutes until all the disruptors activated simultaneously. His team was already heading back to their shuttle. "They're about to learn the most important lesson about humans," he whispered to himself as they moved through the alien ship. "We don't just fight when we have to. We win when we have to." The World Breaker's weapons powered up. Across Earth, people watched the massive ship glow with energy as it prepared to fire. The 1-hour deadline had passed, and the Tsar Cole Emperor had given the order to destroy New York City as a demonstration. In the nest, General Miller and Admiral Wood watched the screens in tense silence. They had no communication with Major Daniels' team. No way to know if the mission had succeeded. 30 seconds to weapon discharge, an officer announced. Then something unexpected happened. The glow of the World Breaker's main cannon dimmed. The massive ship began to drift slightly off its position. "What is happening?" the Tsar Cole Emperor demanded from his command chair. "Fire the weapon." His crew worked frantically at their stations. "The targeting system is not responding," one reported. Power fluctuations throughout the ship. Across the massive vessel, the quantum disruptors activated simultaneously. These devices didn't destroy. They redirected. Energy meant for the weapon systems was being channeled away. Navigation controls responded to new commands that no Zarkol had entered. On the bridge, panic spread as the crew realized they had lost control of their ship. The Emperor watched in disbelief as the World Breaker's weapons turned away from Earth. Back on Earth, cheers erupted in the nest as they saw what was happening. The World Breaker's weapons were powering down. Its engines were shutting off one by one. "They did it," Admiral Wood said softly. Then louder, "They did it." A small shuttle launched from the side of the massive alien ship, barely visible against the darkness of space. Inside, Major Daniels and his team watched as their plan unfolded. "Dr. Frost," Daniels said, "your quantum disruptors work better than we hoped." Frost smiled tiredly. The Zarkol never considered that their own energy could be used against them. "They built the most powerful ship in the galaxy, then we turned it into the galaxy's biggest paperweight." The human fleets, led by Captain Martinez and Commander Taylor, surrounded the now powerless World Breaker. With their ultimate weapon neutralized and most of their fleet disabled, the Zarkol had no choice. The Emperor's voice was cold with rage as he spoke to Earth's leaders on an open channel. "What do you want?" General Miller responded. "Unconditional surrender. All Zarkol forces will leave our solar system immediately. You will acknowledge Earth's independence and our right to defend ourselves." There was a long pause before the Emperor replied. "Agreed. But know this, humans, the Imperium does not forget. We will return with an even greater force." Admiral Wood stepped forward. "You misunderstand. We're not just demanding you leave. We're demanding you never return." On the main screen, the remaining human ships moved into attack position around the World Breaker. "We could destroy your flagship right now," Wood continued. "Your Emperor with it. Instead, we're letting you go. Consider that carefully before you think about revenge." 2 days later, the Zarkol ships that could still fly prepared to leave Earth's orbit. High Commander Vrex, released from captivity, stood with Major Daniels at the launch pad. "I still do not understand," Vrex said. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why show mercy?" Daniels looked at the alien who had once seemed so terrifying. "Because that's the difference between us. You fight to conquer. We fought to protect." "The Imperium has never been defeated before," Vrex said. "How will I explain this to our people?" "Tell them the truth," Daniels replied. "Tell them you thought humans were afraid of war, until it was too late. Tell them we weren't afraid of fighting. We were afraid of what we might become if we let fear rule us. As the last Zarkol ship disappeared into the stars, celebrations continued across Earth. For the first time in centuries, the Zarkol Imperium had been forced to retreat. In the nest, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss the future. The planet had united against a common threat. Now they had new technology, new ships, and new awareness of the galaxy around them. What now? Someone asked. Admiral Wood looked at the star map, showing countless unexplored systems. Now we go forward. Not to conquer, but to explore. Not because we're afraid, but because we're curious. Major Daniels nodded. The war was over. Humanity had proven itself. And the stars were waiting.